Welcome to Always Choose Orange, the show that provides actionable ways to develop and maintain a thriving creative process. A lot of conversations that I'm hearing these days around music seem to center on two things: faster and more. Faster releases, more streams, more TikTok snippets. And there's a place for all that, but this episode is about the opposite mindset. It's about patience and why it might be the most underrated skill a musician or any kind of creative really can develop. It centers around a conversation I had with Ankurana. Ankurana is an electronic musician who spent years slowly building his sound through experimentation, trial and error, and careful listening, often using nature and field recordings as musical material. In our conversation, we talk about what it really takes to develop a musical voice, why restraint can be more powerful than addition, and why cohesive albums still matter in an age of song fragments. If you're interested in how electronic music actually gets made and the journey each song or album can take you on, this episode's for you.
Always choose orange.
When you think about music, what is your first musical memory? So like even when you're like a kid or something, like the first time you remember like hearing music or anything like that.
Music's been a big part, like from birth, I guess, like going right back, like it's always been a thing that's been around. My mum was like super into Bob Marley, so like that, I just, when I was a little kid, that was always going in the house and stuff like that. But I guess there's like milestones, right? Like, because then I could also say, like being in high school and like discovering these bands that like blew my mind and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, in terms of first memory, it would definitely be just like family, like
Okay.
just always having music in the home and stuff. Yeah.
How did it turn from that into sort of like into like a creative thing? Was music one of your first sort of creative experiences, or did you do other forms of art growing up?
Yeah, so like I did a bit of dance when I was like a really little kid, and then I got into drama, like did some acting and stuff like that. But basically, when I was like I don't know, like 12 or so, like my grandparents put me into like guitar lessons and bought me my first guitar, and from then on, it was kind of just like I focused really heavily on guitar for a long time. And yeah, just did that all through school, and then kind of just evolved and evolved, right? Like picked up new things and got interested in different things, and just kind of followed where it went. And then yeah, music's been like the predominant thing for quite a while now.
Yeah, when you were doing those guitar lessons, did you like doing that as a kid, or was it like a chore? Did you have to sort of get dragged to it?
I never had to get dragged to it. I definitely, as a kid, wouldn't practice at all, and, and kind of like, um, yeah, it took me a while to sort of get it and take it seriously. But I had an amazing guitar teacher. So yeah, like he just did such a good job explaining, not only how to play and like how music works and stuff like that, but just how to like think about it.
Okay.
I think, and like starting to see it as more of a like an expression of life, at risk of sounding too kind of profound, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. So was it like scales, chords, theory, all that stuff, or were you focusing on like strum patterns and like all that, or like yeah? Because I know there's a bunch of different ways to learn guitar, right? There's like the sort of
Yeah.
stricter theory way, and then like reading tabs and stuff like that. Were you like reading sheet music and stuff?
Nah, so I'm not too bad. Like I'm pretty good with theory these days. But like yeah, no sheet music and theories. We do sort of do a little bit of it, but I think I was always pretty resistant to that kind of stuff, and I just wanted to be creative. So it tended to be more just like yeah, learning chords and like we do scales and stuff like that. But I really just wanted to learn songs and like write my own music that obviously evolved from that, and then sort of later in life because I went and did music at the University of Queensland, and so there that really honed a lot of those sort of theory skills and stuff like that. But yeah, it's always been fairly unstructured.
Yeah.
I guess.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. When did you start writing your own songs? Was that like in that high school period and stuff, or was it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, no, the first sort of stuff that I wrote was definitely not good, but
Sure.
looking back on it, it's sort of I don't know. It's where it comes from, where I come from, right? So it has, it has its place for sure.
I feel like, at least in my experience, right? So I used to like, make like hip hop beats or like electronic music and stuff on the computer, and
Yeah.
like I don't so much anymore. Like writing has become my sort of main creative output along with like the podcast and stuff. When I listen back to
Yeah.
like the first beats I made when I was like 18, there's like this like sloppy beginner's charm to it where it's like, oh man, I had no
Sure.
clue what I was doing. These chord progressions don't make sense, like the melodies or the drums or whatever. Like, do you find that with your old stuff?
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, like you think what you think works, and obviously you always think it sounds amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the early stuff was definitely pretty rough. It's funny though. Like, so I had a band in we were probably around 16, something like that. Me and a few friends, like, because all my friends play music, and we got a band going, and we recorded a single and thought it was just the best thing out. And it was like my first sort of thing, like real production thing. And I mean, to be fair, we sent it off and it got published on what was it called? Kill City Volume, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something. So it actually
Oh,
got published on a CD in the States. So we were
that's
pretty
cool.
pretty stoked. But
Yeah.
but
What kind
yeah,
of band was it?
definitely. Uh, Kind of, we were all really into metal at the time, so it
Okay.
was kind of like, yeah, it's sort of hard rock metal sort of stuff. Yeah.
How did you get from that into the style of music that you're doing now, like getting into like the more electronic sort of glitch, psytrance?
I don't know, man. It evolved over time. Like I've always really enjoyed metal and stuff like that, and I still do. I listen to like a super wide range of genres and stuff, but I guess in my like 20s, I had a friend that was really into psytrance, and so like we'd go to parties, and then there would be psytrance happening and stuff like that, and I just there was something about it that just worked with my brain, I guess, and then yeah, like that friend like showed me some things, and we'd like share music, and I discovered some artists like Bards, who's like really cool, like pop kind of electronic stuff, and just kind of kept going down the rabbit hole, I guess. And just kept finding amazing artists that like blew my mind, and they were doing these like crazy things I'd never heard before, and like I didn't know that that sound could exist, and yeah, just kept going and going until I was just like, nah, that's what I want to make. Like I want to make, yeah,
Okay.
that kind of forward thinking electronic stuff, and it just kind of organically evolved, I guess. Yeah.
What were some of the like biggest artists that like influenced you during that time when you were first sort of stumbling across like these new styles of music?
So Mr. Bill
Okay.
really changed the way that I thought about that stuff. And then I discovered Tipper, and his music is still just insane to me. It's like just top tier sort of stuff. And then I got into the duo, yeah, duo group, I guess. Echo. They're not a thing anymore, but yeah, again, just blew my mind. And Somatose again just blew my mind. And yeah, there's so many, man. Like it just, yeah, you can just keep going with it.
As you started hearing like this style of music and realizing, like you said, I want to make this stuff, how did you how did you learn it? Was there like a steep learning curve, or had you sort of gradually worked your way there from playing guitar, being in metal bands? Yeah, what was that sort of switch like, or that progression into making stuff on your computer?
I mean, I definitely, the early stuff that I was producing, I sort of was still playing around with both. So I'd still make kind of, because like also through this time I was doing a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, just like me and acoustic guitar. which was like the bulk of my live performance career for a long time, just doing that at pubs and stuff. And then so yeah, I'd record like that stuff, and then I'd record like some heavier stuff, and then try to work in electronic elements. But then, like I say, that friend of mine that was really into psytrance sort of started like, because he produced, he makes really cool stuff. Stump, his artist name is, and yeah, just through like seeing what he was doing and getting exposed to those different kinds of music. I guess slowly, it was a pretty slow process of just like learning, like definitely a steep learning curve for sure. Like production is hard,
Yeah.
and it took a long time. Like this is the stuff I'm making now is coming from probably like, oh, I don't know, 5 to 10 years of experimentation, and then 5 years of taking it seriously and like really buckling down to learn the techniques and sound design and stuff like that. And then yeah, I don't know. I guess I mean watching stuff too, like Mr. Bill that I already mentioned, has a like an amazing. He's an amazing resource of like tutorials and stuff on YouTube. And so yeah, just by watching him and like other people on YouTube and stuff like that, and learning more about the process and just kind of trial and erroring my way through it, I eventually figured out a workflow that worked for me, and just kind of yeah kept practicing. Made heaps of terrible songs, and eventually I got a good one,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Like how much experimentation do you think you've done? Obviously, I'm not asking for like the exact number, but is it like hundreds of songs? Like, are we talking like?
I have folders and folders and folders. I have hard drives full of like attempts, that yeah eventually ended up in like the 8 or whatever that I ended up releasing at that time, or whatever. And even if you go back, like, so I released the first EP under this project under Ankurana, in 2022, and that was from I don't know, a good kind of 2 years or something of experimenting seriously with electronic. And like going back and listening to that stuff now, it's like there's cool ideas in there and stuff, but I had no idea what I was doing with mixing, and sound design. I mean, the ideas are there, but it definitely, yeah. And then again, just like I say, just doing it every day until I got decent.
How do your songs generally start? So, are you hearing like melodies, or are you experimenting with sound first, or drums, or concepts? I'm always curious because everybody seems to approach it a little bit different.
I mean, it is always different, I think. Like, sometimes it'll be a melody that pops into my head that I would just expand. Sometimes it'll be a specific concept. Like, for example, I'm super into the Elder Scrolls,
Okay.
like Skyrim and Oblivion and stuff. And so I have this idea for a song using like the lore of the Godhead and stuff like that from that game series. So like that's an example of like a concept that I really want to turn into something. But then other times it'll just be like I'll be out in nature, just like camping or hiking or something like that, and I'll hear like a bird make a sound and be like, oh, that's amazing. I got to do something with that. Or just like, I don't know. Yeah, lots of different places, man. Sometimes it starts with lyrics too. Yeah, it's really all over the place, and I kind of just, if I can get that initial idea or sound or whatever down, then it's just a matter of sitting with it and working on it until it becomes something that's cool. Yeah. So it's not a very good answer to your question, but
Yeah, well, it's hard. Someone described it to me once. Like, I asked someone that question, and he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "That's like trying to describe like when you fell asleep. Like, how do like how do you
for sure.
how do you describe something like that?" So I understand that, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I like those examples that you gave of yeah, hearing a bird or taking something from Skyrim or Elder Scrolls. That's super cool. Um, how do you stay inspired, right? Like, is it just that it's fun? Do you have like I'm gonna put in X amount of hours? Is it just sort of organically happening? Like what does that kind of look like for you?
I mean, again, there's lots of different answers to that. It is it's kind of a, but I suppose like so like one listening to lots of different music,
Hmm.
especially new music. I'm always looking for new stuff, and if I hear something that is really cool, that'll inspire me. Even just like 1 second of that song could inspire me to go and do something. But again, the same thing of just like life, like hearing someone's story, and getting inspired to like do something with that idea, or like again being in nature and stuff, and just like I don't know, inspiration really, not to like sound too hippy dippy and stuff, but it sort of comes from somewhere else. I think like
Yeah.
there is an element that it just kind of happens, and once that inspiration takes hold, and you can kind of get into that flow state with it, it just sort of all works. I don't know. It just builds on itself, and I'll work for 8 hours and then come out the other side just being like, huh, that's nothing like I thought I was gonna do, but that's pretty cool. But yeah, everything, man, life, yeah.
How many hours go into, and again, I know the answer is going to be like it varies a ton, but like if you had to like roughly sum it up, like how many hours are going into, like let's take the album, right? So off like Forgotten Paths, like one of those tracks, like how long do you think you spent on some of those?
So it's kind of funny, like the first track on that album, Onism, I I cranked out in a day, in probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours just straight, and it was done. And not counting like mixing and mastering, but like the whole thing was done. And then other tracks on there, I would work on for hours, you know, a day or whatever, like over the course of 2 months. So, I mean, I guess, man, yeah, it's really hard to put a number on it. Maybe like maybe like somewhere around the 10-hour mark to like get it to a point where it's ready to refine,
Yeah.
and then the refinement and mixing and mastering can take, you know, I don't know. Let's say another six. I don't know. It's,
Yeah, no,
it's
sure.
yeah.
When so when you're making stuff, because I know that you play guitar and do you play other instruments?
Yeah, like guitar, bass,
Okay.
keys. Yeah.
Do you sort of seamlessly shift between like doing stuff digitally and like playing the instruments? Like what does that kind of workflow look like? Like when do you grab organic instrument and when do you sort of decide to do synth stuff?
I mean, you were asking before about like the starting process, like where something comes from. So a lot of the time, if like I'll just be messing around on my guitar and I'll come up with a cool riff or a cool chord progression or something like that, and so the whole thing will take off from there. So then, in that case, like the guitar is the first thing in that process, and then I build everything around that. Other times, like if I'm building it all electronically and stuff, and then it comes to a point where it's like, I kind of need something organic here to what. Then I'll reach for something else, like guitar, or like a hand pan, like a tongue drum thing, or like I've got a bunch of random instruments lying around. And then sometimes, like with bass, sometimes purely electronic basses just are too hard for what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
In the sense of like they're too like punchy or whatever. So like like an actual bass will just serve that purpose heaps better. So I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, I guess the simple answer is just when it's called for. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, at the same time, a lot of the time it'll start with the physical instrument.
What type of gear and stuff do you use? Like what is your DAW and like what all goes into like some of these songs? Yeah.
So I do everything in Reaper. Um, Spent a lot of time like I'm just the most comfortable with it. I've been using it for a long time. I did use Ableton for a while and Pro Tools for a while and stuff, but I just found Reaper works really well with my brain, like my workflow. It just sort of I know my way around it and stuff, and it's super customizable. So yeah, Reaper. As far as like gear, anytime you hear a guitar on one of my songs, it's gonna be my Ormsby.
Okay.
It's just so amazing. So yeah, shout out to them, Australian company, making amazing guitars. Otherwise, yeah, like in terms of plugins and stuff, like most producers can probably tell that I use Portal by output on everything all the time. Um, and yeah, then I guess specifically like the Valhalla reverbs and delays are really really cool. Utopia is sick. Yeah, there's heaps more, but most of it's software in terms of that kind of stuff. I use Arturia for my like MIDI controllers and keyboards and stuff.
How do you grab your field recordings and stuff? So I noticed some songs have like, sounds from nature or like, I think one of them had like a baby and stuff like that. Like, are you
Yeah, yeah.
pulling existing stuff? Are you recording them yourself? Are you kind of doing both?
Both for sure. So I sort of recently got gifted a really nice field recorder from my partner, and so I'm now leaning into doing all of my own field recordings and all that kind of stuff. On Forgotten Parts, it's probably like I don't know what the ratio would be, but it's that there are some songs where I've pulled from sample packs and Foley packs and stuff, and then but I try to use my own field recordings as much as I can. Um, yeah, so just like because I also really like the idea of most of the ambient packs that you get online are amazing, but they're not like there's not a lot of Australian soundscapes, right? There's not a lot of like forest recordings in Australia, and so I really like the idea of using the places I go and like the forests that I like and stuff like that around here um, for that because it's more authentic, I guess. It's more me. It's yeah, and it's also bringing that kind of specific Australian bird calls and stuff like that into the sound. So yeah, now at a point where I'm trying to use more of that than anything else.
Yeah. So like yeah, how often do you go out in nature and stuff? Like do you live close to a lot of that stuff or do you have to like drive a ways?
I live in like a really small community. So I live in a little village of like 150 people.
Cool.
Um, and then the town that I grew up in is like a bit down the road, which again is like maybe 7,000 people. So it's still pretty small. And we're just surrounded by like waterfalls and rainforest and like it's beautiful. It's yeah. So I try to get out. It's hard with like working and doing all that kind of stuff, but try to get out there like fairly often to grab recordings and also just like enjoy it. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever go out specifically to grab recordings? Like have you ever been like, "Oh, I need to go out and grab this specific thing?"
Yeah, sort of. So my girlfriend is an ecologist basically, and so she's like super into like frog sounds and like figuring out what frogs is what. So we'll go out and she'll do that, and I'll just get my recordings at the same time. So, um, but yeah, I mean, at this point, I just kind of take it whenever I'm going, and if I find a cool space, I'll record it. There's been a couple of times where it's like, no, I specifically want to go and record here, and I've got a bit of a list in my head of like places that I need to go back to record. So yeah.
So when it comes to okay, so like building all the songs and building this new album and all the things that you've done and like you said all these little pieces that are sitting on all these hard drives and stuff like what like if you had to look back on the last couple years, right, like putting together this project and whatever you've kind of been working on in addition, what are like maybe one or a couple really important creative lessons that you learned that you're like, man, that really I'm so glad I learned that these last couple years.
I think the biggest thing is just patience. If I run into a roadblock or something, like trying not to get annoyed about that and just giving it the time and the space to breathe. Um, and also just like not trying to, like early on, it was like, I've got to stack this and this and this and this and this, and like it's always more. I've got to do more.
Mm,
And lately, I'm sort of stripping it back a little bit more and enjoying minimalism, and just making those minimal things really work in that space. Um, Also, like I said, you used to produce a little bit
yeah.
and stuff, so you might, yeah. So working vertically in the door rather than horizontally was a
Mm,
huge epiphany for me, because it just, you can do so many cool things if you're not thinking about the next bar and you're just
yeah.
doing this one and then doing it bar by, and like piece by piece. It just, yeah, it's just a lot more fluid, I think. I don't know how to explain it, but the workflow just is so much better if you do it that way. Um, yeah, and I guess also just, yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back into the first thing, but just trying not to overdo it and just trying to let things be what they are
Mm,
without like, and taking breaks, for sure, taking breaks. Because when I started, I would sit for, 8, 10 hours and do it and think it was amazing. And then I'd wake up the next morning and be like, what the fuck is that? But yeah, I'm sure there's more, but that's probably the stuff that comes to mind. Yeah.
as you've like learned, like you were saying, to refine more, like what are you sort of listening for, I guess? Like how do you know what, like is it all gut instinct, or like are there certain things you're listening for to like when you're like, oh, I need to strip this back?
I like to think that I'm at a point where I can kind of just tell when something needs changing or when something's not working. And rather than trying to make that thing work, maybe it's just a matter of removing it and doing something else,
Okay.
or changing the idea or something like that. Yeah, yeah. I guess at some point it's a gut instinct, but there's also like the more that I've learned, the more that I've learned how to identify those issues and just like, oh, it's super muddy here, like, and the EQing is not fixing it. It's like, oh, well, maybe this guitar track is just shit, or what? Yeah.
Yeah, what parts about like the music process like most excite you, right? Because I've talked to so many different musicians, like friends and on the show, and just thought about it like myself, and everyone's sort of excited by little different facets of it. Like, what do you find yourself like the most stoked about, like as you're making things? Like, what are you paying the most attention to, and like what do you find yourself sort of thinking about as you're trying to like craft the best songs and albums you can?
I try to focus on the subtleties, and not overcomplicating things. Again, that goes back to like kind of, yeah, like trying not to be too maximalist unless it calls for it. Um, so I mean, sound design I really really enjoy, especially little tiny things that like maybe you only hear once in the entire song, but just that one tiny thing being there, even if you don't notice it when you're listening to it, just adds so much to that moment specifically, and then whatever. So sound design is really exciting. And then also just like, I don't know, I get really excited about like just like random little things, like a specific note, and I'll just be like, oh, that one note sounds amazing, and it's like that will keep me driving to, yeah. And it's the same when I'm listening to music that I really like. Like there'll be one certain tiny little sound that no one else noticed. I show other people the song and they're like, what are you talking about? That's not even there. But it's like that one little sound just is incredible to me, and that'll like fuel, yeah. But I also actually really enjoy mixing. Like I think a lot of people that I see online anyway seem to hear the birds.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did a whole bunch just fly over?
Yeah. um, yeah, like mixing is a bit of a chore or whatever to a little bit, but I actually quite enjoy it because I guess it is, again, it's the subtlety, right? It's that like cutting this tiny little bit, like no one's even going to really notice that I'm doing that, but it does make a difference to the cohesive overall piece. Um, and then just like coming up with shit, like the first hour of production is always super exciting because it's just new ideas and new ideas and new ideas. But yeah. And
How
then
did you,
the,
so, okay, I'm like what you're saying about
yeah,
mixing, right? So I didn't like produce as seriously as you or a lot of people, but like I made a ton of stuff, right? So I probably made like 100 to 200 like little songs, but I just never got to
yeah,
like the
cool, man.
point, that you're at.
Yeah.
One of the parts that frustrated me so much was mixing, right? So like how did you build that skill set? Because I found it so like challenging and frustrating to try to like learn how to do it, like what frequencies to cut and just like did you just learn it sort of by doing it, or were there certain resources or like tips that you feel like were made a huge difference?
So mostly learning by doing and just trial and error for sure. But there were definitely other things, like I know I keep talking about it, but Mr. Bill's tutorials and just watching him. He's done a couple of live streams of just him, produce, like just making a track kind of thing. And so there's heaps of stuff I picked up from that, like just you know cutting lows from everything except your bass to make that work, and just little things like that that like um, little insights here and there that I've seen other people do, or talking to other producer friends. Like I've got a few people that I know that like are pretty into it as well, and just like that really helps identify, especially like getting another perspective on like because if you're too close to it, like you're not going to notice the thing, but if you show it to someone who knows what they're talking about, like they're going to be able to tell you. So that as well, just talking to people and learning through that way. But I think most of all, just trial and error, just doing it and doing it and doing it until it sounds good.
Is there a part of your creative process, like any part of it from start to finish, that you feel like other people who make music might be like, well, that's kind of strange or unorthodox?
Ah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know what other people think, I suppose. I can't,
Sure.
yeah. Um, but I guess like a lot of people, from what I've seen, don't like to do too much on the masters, apart like on the master track, apart from mastering. Uh, oh, actually, yeah. So that's one thing. So using there's a plugin called Bayer Dynamic, which is sort of like a simulation thing. So like a car test plugin, right? So where you put it on the track and it simulates what it would sound like through a car, so that you can kind of check your mix in different places without having to render it and put it in a USB and go and whatever. So I've got a few of those. Bayer Dynamic has like a few different options. So there's like a car simulation, a 5.1 surround simulation, like a concert hall simulation, something like that. And so again, they're used for the idea of mixing and simulating. But I actually find it's really fun to chuck that on the master and just bring it in a certain point, so the sound sounds like it's like maybe even technically bad, but it's in a different space that you can't achieve with reverb or whatever. It's in a simulated space that then bringing it back into the full thing just hits heaps harder. And a lot of people obviously do that with filters and and that kind of stuff, which I do too, but using those like car test or simulation plugins to create a difference and a contrast, I find really interesting. And I mean, hopefully it works in the overall track, but I think as a specific thing, I don't know a lot of people that would do that.
So as you're like doing that and like thinking about constructing an album, right? Like listening to Forgotten Paths, like it feels very continuous. Like how do you sort of do that? Like were you intentionally thinking about like these song transitions and how to keep it fluid?
Definitely, yeah. It's probably the first project I've done, the first album that I've done, where I've really tried to do that. The other stuff, there tends to be like there's a track and there's another track and another track, and even if there's a continuous idea, they didn't really do that. So with this one, I definitely was intentionally trying to do that, using little things like there's a little melody line that happens in Pastel Dreaming, which is the last track, which is only momentarily, but it appears in some of the other tracks leading up to it. The idea being so that when you hear Pastel Dreaming, there's like, even if you haven't consciously noticed that, there's a sense of resolution because it's been hinting at it the whole time, and stuff like that. And then I definitely, so on a practical level, once all those tracks are done, and I suppose I should say too that like I tried to use a fairly cohesive set of sounds through that whole thing, just so that it does flow. But then also at the end, I'll take all of those tracks, put them in a single project, run them like so it's a full mix of the entire album, and then go through and add little transitions and stuff like that, just so that they do flow continuously. And so, yeah, definitely the first album that I've done where I've really tried to do that. And I think thank you. I think it works.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I felt that for sure. And that was exactly why I was asking too. Because one of the things that I've never tried to do that before, right? And like, I don't have a super deep grasp of theory. Like I know rudimentary stuff. Like how much do you have to like dip into that, right? Because I'm assuming, right, these songs are in different keys and stuff, and as you're watching how they ebb and flow, like, do you ever have to get into the technical space and be like, okay, hold on, what key is this in? What key is this in? Do you have to like modulate and stuff like that, or like, yeah?
So a little bit, but I tend not to think about it too much. I tend to just do what sounds good to me.
Yeah.
But there were definitely a few spots where, I definitely had to use that stuff and like, okay, how am I going to get from, I can't remember what they were in, but how am I going to get from B minor into into the next phrase? Like, yeah, so I definitely lean on it occasionally for that stuff, but no, for the most part, it's kind of just like, does this sound good? How can I make it sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that little detail you were mentioning of like almost like foreshadowing that like melodic phrase that showed up again in Pastel Dreaming and stuff. Like, are there other things in the album like that? Because you were mentioning like these little details matter to you, right? So like, are there little details in the album that you would hope people would eventually like stumble on, or anything that you like want to share stories about or talk about?
Yeah, so I guess, we were talking about ambience and like field recording stuff before. So there definitely, when I went into making this album, the idea was definitely to make a journey, right, from start to finish. So that I'm taking you somewhere and, so the ambient sounds and the field recordings are very intentional. The spaces, like, whether it's a forest space here and an ocean space here or whatever, were very intentionally placed that way to almost have you walk through, like, maybe not a trail, but you know what I mean, like walk through from this place to this place. And I'll use Pastel Dreaming again as an example. That song, and this kind of goes back into what you were talking about before about like what comes first, right? Yeah. So Pastel Dreaming is an example of where I started with only only field recorded sounds and ambience. Okay. I mapped out the entire track with just Foley.
Yeah.
And then built the music on top of that. So it's like, it starts with the sound of like waves moving and stuff. And then there's like footstep, you're walking along the beach, right? And then you get to the lighthouse, which is on the album cover.
Yeah.
And you walk up the steps and stuff like that. And there's a point where he's like skipping rocks in the water, and stuff like that. And then from there, you walk back into like, I don't think it's a forest specifically, but there's like a wilderness, right? Like into a field or something like that. And then at the very end of it, you walk up the steps and shut the door, which ends the album.
Okay.
And so that entire track was planned out with Foley from the beginning, to be a culmination of everything that had happened before.
Okay.
And so then I tried to do the same thing with the visualizer, which is up on YouTube. So in Pastel Dreaming, the last track, everything comes back, and there's like echoes of everything that came before, which was kind of the idea. And side note, that entire track too, Pastel Dreaming, was entirely based on a painting that my girlfriend did.
Cool.
Actually,
Do
I
you
have it
have
here.
that? I was gonna say I want to see this.
I
Yeah.
do.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. That's
So
awesome.
she did that, and then I basically just looked at it and made it all
Yeah.
based on that. So sometimes it's very visual too. Yeah.
That's the type of stuff that I'm super interested in. So like, okay, so I love the idea of like narrative music or music that's intentionally crafted to take people on a journey is like my jam. And I think it's something that,
Nice.
especially in the world of streaming, like is underutilized. And unfortunately, like I guess the average music, maybe this is a pessimistic view, but I feel like I wish the average music listener cared more about album experiences nowadays and stuff, right? So like you're talking about like this journey, like when you think about like putting the album together and like the journey that you're taking people on, like are you thinking about that in terms of like a narrative, like an actual story? Or are you thinking about it in terms of like I'm taking people from this emotion to this emotion to this emotion, or like you said, like visual scenes, or is it kind of all of the above?
Kind of all of them. I mean, so like I think you're right. Unfortunately, I the way I consume music is I listen to whole albums
Yeah,
generally,
same.
because that's how I like to experience music, and that's how I would hope other people would experience, at least my music. Like that's kind of the intention. Um, so there's definitely a sense of I want you to listen to the whole thing because there is a story from start to end, and there is a narrative from start to end. At the same time, because not a lot of people, or again, maybe I'm cynical too, like do that. Um, I also try to be mindful of, okay, does this track still stand on its own? Is there still a movement within that track? So in a sense, it is kind of from emotion to emotion to emotion or whatever. If they don't listen to the whole thing, like hopefully there's still some kind of a journey within each song. Um, and like the visual thing is an interesting point too. I would hope that the stuff that I'm making is fairly evocative, like in terms of imagery, and I definitely try to make it that way. Um, yeah, it's hard though to try and balance an individual experience with just that song when I know it's part of a broader narrative. But I guess that's, yeah, just how it is. Like you just kind of have to, yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that though, that there's like, yeah, there's the journey of the song and then that fits into a larger segment and then fits into the album and they all kind of just like nest inside of
Definitely,
it.
yeah, because it's like that, like the zooming out and zooming in thing, right? Like it's a microcosm and a macrocosm. Like
Yes.
it's yeah, trying to find that balance of like how far do you want to zoom in or zoom out? Like that's kind of up to the person, I suppose. But
Do you have like like a song or two on the album that you're like especially proud of or anything that you find yourself being like, yeah, yeah, this one I'm really pleased how it turned out.
yeah, man, I think in general I'm pretty pleased with the whole thing, but definitely. So there's a track on the album called Glimmer that I did with a friend of mine, Michael Williams, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. That one was really cool. I think Smoke Factory as one of the heavier, or I don't know if heavy is the right word, but one of the more up tempo pieces, I think is pretty sick, just in terms of the movements. Pastel Dreaming, I think, because it's probably the most ambient piece I've ever done, and I think it still works. And trying to keep keep it interesting and engaging while also being ambient is
Yep.
kind of a thing on its own. So I guess I'd point to those three, but I'm pretty proud of the whole thing. Like they all have a special sort of place with me.
How do you approach like the song titling? Like, are those meant to be sort of read into as like images that you're going for, or are they sort of just things that popped into your head as you were making the songs?
A bit of each, bit of each. So the track Taral is the Sanskrit word for liquid, which I just thought sounded cooler than calling it liquid.
Yeah.
Um, um, Onism, the first track, is a word that I came across that just means the realization that no matter how much you experience in your life, you still only have a minuscule perspective and you will never understand the totality of experience, which I thought was just an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And then stuff like some of them are pretty specific. Smoke Factory, like I smoke cigarettes like heavily, so that was kind of a reflective piece for me on that idea. And then also leading into the idea of industrialization and kind of taking that again microcosm to macrocosm, the personal impact of being a smoker, the macro of polluting the earth, right? Like so, it kind of deals with those things. And then say Banana Forest was very specific because that song, I was trying to capture a moment from my childhood when really early childhood, when I was living with my mum in far north Queensland, we had a banana forest next to the house, and I'd always hang out in it. So I was just trying to capture that moment in that song, and like the peace that it brought me. And then obviously Pastel Dreaming just made sense because of the image.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sort of yeah. I do think that I do think about them a fair bit. The song titles to me are fairly important, even if they're not necessarily to consumers. But then again, sometimes I'll write something and I'm just like, nah, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
Like, it depends.
I love so what you were talking about with like Smoke Factory, right? Like the microcosm, like being your personal experience, and the macrocosm of like that larger idea that's related to your personal experience. Like, how much do
Yeah.
you find that like is there a piece of your like because the album is instrumental, right? And so like is
Yeah.
there like do you find it sort of cathartic or that you're able to work through emotions or like thoughts and things like as you make music? I guess I'm curious like especially like that maybe it's that song or maybe a different one but like sort of that thought of working something out through music. I'm just curious like what your relationship to that idea is.
100%. Yeah. Everything I make is super cathartic for me. I think uh, expressing stuff through music is the way I know how. Um, so yeah, man, like things get rough sometimes, and for everyone. And I think the way that I deal with that is to express it in music. It always has to be, whether it's it doesn't have to be a sad thing either. It's like I said with Banana Forest, that was just trying to capture a really nice moment. Um, but it's always definitely an expression of emotion. Yeah, like super. Yeah, some tracks are very emotional for me. Um, like I released a single after the album called "For the Greatest Human I Know." I recently lost my grandma, and so that song was uh, the complete expression of everything I was going through that time, and sort of in a way brought me some closure about it because I was able to make something out of it, make something good out of it, and yeah, yeah, always very emotional. Like I'll make stuff for fun as well.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like try and make a dubstep track or something just because it's fun, but it's not the stuff that I find a lot of meaning in, I
Sure.
guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So then this I feel like this idea may or may not be related to this, but like the name like Ankurana, like Sanskrit. I looked it up, right? Sanskrit for this is the definition I saw. So correct me if this is not the definition, but I saw that it was like the act or the process of like sprouting or bringing forth like new growth or sort of blooming. Tell me about like how much you thought through like that name and how that sort of relates to like your experience of making this music.
Yeah, man. Yeah, germination. Yeah. In my sort of early to mid 20s, I spent some time in Nepal. I was going through a lot of time, really weird place in my life. So as mid 20s people do, I went to Nepal to try and find myself. And just loved it, like loved every part about it. Well, on my own, I was just backpacking around, just seeing stuff, and obviously I've been making music for a long time before that. But when I was over there was really when the seed of this project sort of became a thing, uh, and it just I saw like through everything I saw and experienced, I just really wanted to make music out of it. And obviously, yeah, being a Sanskrit word, it just kind of made sense because that was where the inception of it all was from. And yeah, I came away just being like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is how I want to, yeah. So it just sort of made sense. And then, yeah, obviously sprouting, germination. I also created the project at a time that was like a big time of change for me in a lot of different ways. So it just sort of fit. It just sort of felt right to use that name for this new phase of my life, or this new like, yeah. So it's I don't know. I think it fits.
That's awesome. What now that that album's out, right? Like since October, um,
Mm.
are you already working on other stuff? Have you been? Yeah, nice.
Always working on stuff,
Yeah.
man.
What do
Just
you
constantly.
are you is there like an intent of it being a larger thing? Or are you kind of just exploring like what's coming out after that? Because sometimes when you finish a big project, it's like, whoa, okay, I sort of was holding all these things tight, and now I want to just sort of like relax and see what comes in. Do you find that true for you, or do you like sort of having focused, larger projects that you're always working towards?
So I definitely like doing full lengths. It's definitely a better. I find it more like it just works better for me than doing singles and stuff. At the same time, you're absolutely right. Like coming out of like by the time I finished Forgotten Paths, as proud of it as I am, I was kind of like, all right, cool, I'm ready to move on. Like let's just yeah, next thing. Um, so yeah, obviously, like I said, I've done a single since then. I am working on. I got a bunch of things that I want to do.
Hmm.
So I've got an acoustic uh, like EP in mind with vocals and stuff that I'm sort of working on in the background, just slowly. I do have basically a full album that just needs to be mixed
Oh,
from a little while ago. Um, so at some point I'll get to that. But I've also just been making new stuff and just like definitely there are some new sounds and some new ideas that I want to explore with. I mean, maybe it'll turn into the next full length. At this point, I'm just kind of messing around and seeing what happens with it. But in the back of my mind, I'm kind of like, yeah, this will turn into another EP or something at least.
yeah.
But it's sort of, I'm always kind of working on a bunch of different things at once, I guess.
How do you determine what to work on? Is it just based on what you're feeling that day, or do you sort of sit down and go, I'm gonna sort of force myself to work on this piece, or
So normally it'll just kind of be whatever I feel like.
yeah.
But I definitely, so like I said, with the idea of the song for Godhead, like the Elder Scrolls lore thing, I definitely want to do that, and that'll be a matter of sitting down and going, all right, how am I going to do this, and like
Yep.
working it out properly and stuff. And I have a few ideas like that that I want to explore properly, and I'm going to have to sit down and force myself to do to some extent. Um, So yeah, sort of a bit of both. But at the moment, I mean, especially coming up to the end of the year and stuff like that, I kind of just having fun with it at the moment. Yeah.
When you think back on your music, what what do you hope people like think, feel, or experience when they listen to it? What is sort of if there is a guiding intent, like what do you kind of see that as?
It's kind of hard. So, because obviously I know what I mean, right? Like, I know the intention that I'm putting into the song, and I know what it means to me and what it's representing. But I think the beauty of instrumental music is that it can be whatever you want it to be, right? So I don't like to be too. Uh, I don't like to tell people what to feel, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Because people are going to take whatever they're going to take from it wherever they are in life. So I guess the only thing that I would hope is that it is a journey, right? Like from start to finish, it's a movement through a space and an emotion, different emotions and stuff like that, good and bad, happy and sad. I guess I just hope that people get that, whatever it is for them. Um, yeah, I just hope it's meaningful in some way and that people resonate at the end of the day. I just have no control over in what way that's going to be. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's like the freeing part and the challenging part. It's like
Mm,
freeing in the sense of, okay, cool, like I get to relinquish and let this go and I did my part, but yeah, it can be
mm,
frustrating too, especially if people take, I mean, this doesn't really happen to me, but I hear of some people where people will interpret their stuff in a way that, you don't like as a creator. You're like, I
mm.
really didn't mean that. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too. And I mean, I guess again with instrumental music, I guess there's less risk of that
Yeah.
because you're not really making a statement so much. With if a lyric can be interpreted in questionable ways sometimes, I suppose. Well, because like you write,
Yeah.
right? Like, do you write fiction or nonfiction?
Both. Yeah. So,
Yeah, true.
yeah, my first novel I'm like pretty deep in. I've done like 10 drafts and I'm sort of fiddling with the end of that. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, I mean, well, and maybe you can relate to this too. Like I'll write stuff and then sometimes I'll read it back and be like, "Oh, I didn't even know, like I didn't even mean it this way." And I'll be like, "I need to change that because it's coming off like completely different than I thought." So I can see how that happens to
yeah.
people.
Well, because that's what I was going to say, right? Because with fiction, I mean, obviously, you're telling more of a specific story, but like people are still going to take what they want from that and interpret it wherever they are in life. And yeah, I mean, I guess you just hope that it wouldn't be taken in a destructive way, I
Right.
suppose.
Well, and like it comes from some of it comes from the conscious mind, but some of it comes from the subconscious, right? So stuff's all like coming out.
Exactly.
And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know I was like feeling this about, I don't know, fatherhood or friendship or whatever. So
Yeah.
the powerful.
Definitely. And same thing with the music, man. Like even going into things with a specific intention, sometimes when it's finished, I'll listen back to it and go, huh, that actually makes me feel a different thing than I was thinking maybe, but that's still correct. Like you're saying, like we were talking about, like it's cathartic.
Yeah.
Sometimes coming out on the other side of it, it's like, oh crap, that is what I felt about that. I just didn't even, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, where like sometimes it's like I don't know, and it sounds like you're the same way. Like it's like we don't know how we feel until we make something from it and then hear it back or
Exactly.
read it back and you're like, "Whoa, that's how I feel."
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
It's just
cool.
like that stream of consciousness thing sometimes, and then in retrospect, it makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What are so like going back to the question of like influences, like this is like one of my favorite questions to ask musicians because I love thinking about this. Is like what are and they don't have to be like your three favorite, but what are three
Mm.
albums that you'd recommend to me and the listeners and the viewers that you just like, man, you should sit down and listen to this from start to finish because it either impacted you or you think there's just cool sounds on it or whatever it is. Just yeah, three projects, any genre, whatever.
In the electronic space, I definitely have to say Tipper. Either Forward Escape or Jettison Mind Hatch, mind blowing albums. Um, the new Mr. Bill album, Mr. Melanzana, is insane. It's so cool. Um, yeah, and Somatoast, Live Dreaming is probably my favorite of his. Everything's amazing from all of them, but it's probably my favorite of his. Yeah. Um, and then yeah, to be a bit cheeky, to get outside of electronic, um, 9 Inch Nails, The Fragile is incredible.
Mm.
Um, the plot in use, Happiness and Self Destruction, incredible. Um, I'll leave it at that. There's so many more, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard. That's cool, man. I'll have to check some of those out. I've listened to Tipper, but not those albums, so I gotta check those out. And
Yeah, true. What have you listened to
man, I
from
listen
him?
to everything, right? Like man, in the electronic space, I'm trying to think of some of my favorite electronic albums. Spangle. I'm a big Spangle.
Oh, how could I forget Spangle, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, Spangle all the way. Tales of the
Yeah.
Ineffable is my favorite of his.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
holy
my favorite
shit.
too. That's my
Nice.
favorite one. That one, and then Nothing is Lost, but or
Yeah,
whatever, Nothing is found, but nothing. I forgot the name of it, but that one. Those
yeah.
two are like, man, they're ridiculous.
So good. Simon Posford is incredible. Yeah.
Crazy. So yeah, Spangle. I like. I'm trying to think of what else. Um, I like Aphex Twin a lot.
Oh yeah. True.
Yeah. His music's a little cold for me, but like, I like it a lot. Um,
I definitely yeah, like he does really cool stuff. I From what I've heard, and to be fair, I haven't listened to that much Aphex Twin. The stuff I've listened to doesn't like super do it for me. But he's definitely doing cool stuff.
yeah.
Like it, yeah, yeah. It's just maybe not my bag as much, I guess. Yeah.
It's pretty out there and like it's very like I don't know, it just feels like cold, which I think he's going for, but it's like very it's
Mm,
not like emotional and it's very like intellectual and yeah, I don't know. Like
mm,
so it's
mm.
interesting. Um but yeah, no man, to answer your question, I listen to tons of stuff. I love jazz, uh
Yeah, nice.
classical. I used to be really into like emo, post-hardcore, punk, all that stuff,
Yeah.
hip hop. Yeah.
No, same. Yeah. All that stuff. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, is there anything else while we're here? We still got a little bit of time if you have anything. Is there anything else that you want to either share about the album, your process, music, anything else that you think would be worth chatting about while we're here?
I mean, I guess just like it's really cool that I mean it's a double-edged sword, right? Like it's really cool that production and like just people making music in general has become so accessible. It's awesome that there's so many people doing it. There's like so many incredible artists that like don't get the sort of recognition that they deserve. Like I come across people all the time that have no followers and stuff like that that are just making really cool stuff, which is awesome. The other side of that is that the market is so oversaturated and streaming is so not good for artists that it sort of yeah it makes it really cool and really hard at the same time, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, like if anyone's interested in doing it, just do it. Just like yeah, just do it over and over and over and over again until you get something good.
Always choose orange.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If this conversation resonated with you in any way, let me know in the comments. I'm always curious what you're taking away or what you plan to implement into your own creative process.